This is the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Better Sports Network, and the FFPC. You can connect with me on X at Eric Balkman and the FFPC on X at FFPC. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everyone that you can get a listeners-only 10% discount to RotoViz by using the code RVRadio2025. That's RVRadio 2025. Your subscription gives you unlimited access to all of the RotoViz content and tools, and it supports the podcast channel as well. Now, without further ado, here's the latest episode of the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown.
Happy September 23rd, 2025, everyone. Hopefully week 3 was good to you, and hopefully week 4 will be even better. Welcome into the latest episode of the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. You can connect with me, Eric Balkman, at Eric Balkman on X. Of course, you know me from the Better Sports Network, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, and the Fantasy Football Players Championship. Speaking of the FFPC, if you haven't yet, check out the weekly challenge that is live for week 4 right now at myffpc.com. There's no draft with this. There's no salary cap. You're just picking 10 players. Whatever 10 players you want, or you can pick 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. The slant is you can't have multiple players per team. If you want Malik Neighbors, you can't have Jackson Dart. If you want Justin Fields, you can't have Garrett Wilson, so on and so forth. You can win up to $2,500 each and every week in 10, 30, and 100 team contests. Only one player per NFL team. MyFFPC.com is where to go for that. That's MyFFPC.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be 3 times per week now on the FFPC YouTube channel throughout the rest of the regular season and halfway through the playoffs. RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown 10 p.m. on Tuesdays. The FFPC Insider Access Show 7 p.m. on Thursdays. And, of course, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays. Speaking of Eastern Time, let's talk with a guy who's on Eastern Time right now. He is a 17-time champion in the Fantasy Football Players Championship and currently sits in 4th place as we head into Week 4 in the FFPC Main Event, a contest that will pay out a $1 million grand prize. You connect with this guy on the X at Edelman24. He is Mike Edelman. Mike, good Tuesday evening to you. Thanks so much for hopping aboard and it's exciting, dude. Top 5 team in the FFPC. I know you're doing well in the NFFC as well. It's a great start to the season for one Mike Edelman.
Yeah. No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Has been a great start. It's a great night too. Yankees just walked it off against the White Sox, so that's good. Great night. I appreciate the time.
As my Milwaukee Brewers, who have just called up a pitcher from AAA, Bruce Zimmerman, who promptly gave up a grand slam to Ryan O'Hearn in the bottom of the first. So we're looking good tonight for the Brewers. Not really, but that's okay. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. I'd root for Brewers-Yankees World Series, Mike. I know you would too. It'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
So let's get into the fantasy football portion of tonight. And I want to kick things off with something I noticed. Now, you have a bunch of teams in the FFPC, but what I noticed about your 4th place team, and maybe this is true of others too, but on that squad, you have George Pickens, you have Jake Ferguson, you have Javonte Williams, and you have Dak Prescott. Were you loading up on Cowboys specifically on this team? Did you do that throughout a lot of your teams? And quite frankly, maybe you can weigh in on this because I know I started targeting – I wouldn't say targeting, but I was bumping up Cowboys on my draft board more after the Micah Parsons trade because I just felt like the Cowboys offense was going to be in more shootouts with losing such a significant pass rusher. I don't know if you saw it the same way, but you loaded up on the boys on this 4th place team, and it's paying off.
Yeah. No, I would say – It kind of happened by accident. I definitely was targeting George Pickens. He was definitely someone I was interested in this year. And, the way that particular draft kind of played out, there was like a big tight end run and I ended up with Ferguson. And when that happened, I definitely said to myself, I'm getting Dak. Like I wanted Dak to set up the the double stack there. And then Javonte kind of just fell to where I just took him. But I agree with you. I mean, once the Micah trade happened, and even before that, getting the CD and Pickens was definitely something I was interested in. And I'll take, what Ferguson and Javonte have been doing has been, great at this point. So hopefully they can keep it up.
I think the other thing to keep in mind too here is it could be even bigger for Pickens and Ferguson now with CeeDee Lamb having this high ankle sprain. Your team's in fourth right now, but Ferguson's been the tight end one so far this year. We saw how much more Dak Prescott started leaning on Pickens after Lamb went out of that game. This could be massive for you going forward here, Mike, and I know you're rooting for it. I want to bring in our good buddy, Steven Yergalos here, the fantasy soprano himself. Mike's a great guy and the most annoying guy to draft against, LOL. Yeah, I was texting with him earlier, and he said you are a sniper, my friend, and he just did not like drafting next to you.
Yeah, Steve's a great guy. I met him for the first time this year in New York City, and then also out in Vegas. So yeah, no, I appreciate that, Steve. You are as well, my friend. You are as well.
The Giants. Are you a Giants fan? I don't even know.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. So this is good because we got some breaking news this morning that Russell Wilson has been placed as the backup quarterback for the Giants. Jackson Dart, the first rounder, is going to be starting now going forward. And I want to kind of connect the dots here a little bit. I don't know how much we can talk about Malik Neighbors because Neighbors he's going to be good regardless. Maybe this is you bump him up a little bit. What I'm more curious about here, what's the shot in the arm of Dart going to do to this offense? And maybe specifically Wan'Dale Robinson, who did not have a good game in week 3, but was unbelievable in week 2, doing some stuff downfield that we haven't seen since his collegiate days, Mike. With Dart taking over for the Giants, what's the impact going to be on Robinson? And sort of what's the impact going to be on this offense in general? Again, Tyrone Tracy missing a few weeks now too.
Yeah. I mean, it can't get worse, right? I mean, I think, it was weeks 1 and weeks 3, it was pretty bad. And even with that, Neighbors and Wan'Dale were still producing. So, I think it's going to be, a shot in the arm for them. I think, Dart's going to be what they need. Wan'Dale specifically, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't view him much more than kind of a bye week fill-in type guy anyway. But he'll probably be like a safety blanket type guy, and he'll go back to getting his, 6-7 targets a game. But I'm really hoping that Dart really opens it up and him and Neighbors connect and it works out, because I'm definitely a big Neighbors owner over my portfolio of teams.
Yeah, I am too. And I looked at how that team was last year with the poor quarterback play, and I'm like, well, Russell Wilson's got to be an improvement. And for 1 week, he really was against Dallas. And then, we kind of saw them slip back to reality in week 3. But now we're in the new reality, the Cam Scadaboo, Jackson Dart backfield ready to take off in week 4. So that's going to be fun to watch for sure. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. Robinson bye week fill in. The week 2 thing was an aberration.
Well, I mean, I think Robinson's he's a solid player, right? Yeah, I don't think he's going to be like a 15-plus point scorer every week. Mm-hmm. From where he was drafted, I mean, I think whatever he's giving you he's definitely outperforming his ADP. But yeah, I'm not starting him on any of my teams until we get into bye weeks.
Regarding the bye weeks, we've been able to play with our rosters a little bit here these first few weeks of the season, as we do every year, because we don't have to worry about bye weeks. One of the things that you've done on your 4th place team's roster, you don't have DeAndre Swift, but you do have Roschon Johnson and Kyle Monangai. Can you tell us a little bit about the thought process on why you made sure that you have both of those Bears backups on your squad right now?
Yeah, so this draft took place a little bit earlier in the drafting season, and going into it, I wasn't huge on DeAndre Swift in the beginning of the drafting season, and just knowing Ben Johnson and knowing the rushing offense he had in Detroit, I wanted to have a piece of the Bears running back room. I didn't know who it was going to be, so I was trying to get both of them. And after the drafts ended, like, Roschon Johnson was probably my highest owned player. Now that hasn't worked out, and I probably end up cutting him on most of my teams. But my goal there was I'm hoping to hit later in the season with one of these guys, because I didn't think Swift was gonna, one, be a workhorse, and two, if he was a workhorse, there was no way he was gonna last the season. Now, so far, he has been that workhorse, and I did change my tune later in the draft season where I did start drafting him a little bit. But that's my thought, and I still believe it. I still believe one of those guys, if not one of them, someone else is going to be valuable down the stretch coming out of the Bears backfield.
And I think it's important to understand, like Adam Krautwurst from the Deep End Fantasy Football Podcast always says, never cut a running back. Don't ever waive a running back. Keep him on your roster because you never know when you're going to need him. And I mean, Roschon Johnson might not look all that great right now, and he looks cuttable. But what happens this week? And maybe Johnson takes a step forward. Maybe Monangai goes down. Maybe Swift goes down. And all of a sudden, you got to kind of keep Roschon Johnson around. If push comes to shove and we're in the same situation and you need to dump one of these guys, are you saying you'd rather roster Monangai over Johnson at this point?
I think so at this point. I mean, Ben Johnson has talked positively about Monangai multiple times. He drafted him. And as much as I like Roschon, I mean, he's done nothing. I think he's been active the last 2 games, hasn't even got on the field. So to me, that's telling me that if I had to pick, I'll lean Monangai at this point.
The NFC North features the Detroit Lions, who had a bit of a clunker week 1, but man, they looked on point in week 2, putting up 50-plus points against Chicago. And then week 3, last night against the Ravens, what an impressive performance that was, really by the whole team, but specifically the offense. Interestingly enough, this was the first game that Isaac Tesla did not have a catch. He made a great acrobatic catch in week 1 against Green Bay. And then he made another for a touchdown. And then he made another great catch on the sideline that was almost a touchdown in week 2 against Chicago. He did get 2 targets last night, but no catches. And I noticed that you have Tesla on a lot of your teams, Mike. And I have to ask, there's obviously no standalone value right now with Tesla. But the contingent upside, are you of the belief that if either Jameson Williams or Amon-Ra St. Brown goes down, that this guy might be in for like 7-8 targets a game?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. We had this conversation in New York City, and it was Nelson Sousa actually. It was in the conversation, and he made a good point. He's like, if he's a free agent, right? If Isaac Tesla is a free agent, and Brown or Williams get hurt, how much does he go for in fab? So, that's a really good point, and I agree, right? He's probably going for 400 or 500 plus, right?
Yeah.
In fab. So that's one of the reasons why I held him. I'm holding him on all these teams, right? I don't know. So it's interesting because right now, Jameson Williams, who's everyone loved going into the season, I almost feel like if it was St. Brown who got hurt, that JMO might move into that role, and then Tesla would go into the JMO role where he might get 3 to 4 shots a game. But that could be like 2 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown or something like that, right? I think that's very feasible. So I'm not giving that up. I mean, because he has looked really good. He looked really good in the preseason. I think he has talent, so I think he's worth holding on to.
Tesla is one of these guys that was picked on day 2 of the draft. And, no matter what pundit you listen to or read or what have you, a lot of them use the word raw. And a lot of them talked about his limited production in college. And to me, even in my rookie drafts for Dynasty, I mean, I went after him in a few spots, but just more FOMO picks, not a guy with target, because I just really didn't see how it would pan out in year 1 for such a raw guy who had such limited collegiate production. And then I start seeing the plays that this guy's making in preseason. And then I start looking at how that he's making these plays in the regular season against real life NFL starting cornerbacks. And I have to think to myself, okay, maybe this raw thing, maybe this collegiate production, yeah, I know that's normally important, but that's not an end all be all, right? Like you can still have success even if you didn't check those boxes off in college. And to me, it's like if this situation presented itself where let's say St. Brown goes down, I feel like he is such a route tactician that it'd be very hard for Tesla to step into that role. But I also think what he's been able to do so far has been very hard, and he makes it look easy. So, I mean, I don't know what this guy's capable of. And certainly when you're trying to win $1 million, this is the type of player you like to have in your holster and deploy him if the situation presents itself.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You want to, and it's funny you say that about in college, right? Like I remember I was talking with Jack Hahn, and I think he played at a small school near, I think his son plays college football, Jack's son. And I think he plays at a small school, like I don't know if it was in the Chicago area or outside of Chicago, and he would dominate. And then he transfers to I think it was Arkansas, and they didn't use him. They didn't use him at all. It didn't make any sense.
Hillsdale was the college he was at before Arkansas. He was there for 3 years, like you said, dominated. And then he gets to Arkansas for 2 and just for whatever reason, he now in 2023, he was the second leading receiver on Arkansas for what it's worth. 34 catches, 351 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then the following year, 545 yards on only 28 catches and 3 touchdowns. So he did catch 60-plus passes, a shade under 900 yards, and he started 17 of 25 games. But certainly this was a player that you look at and you see the upside and how tantalizing that is, and you balance that out with oh, am I going to draft this guy? Did you draft him in a lot of spots, or did you pick him up off waivers?
No, both. I think I drafted him in quite a few spots, and then wherever I didn't draft him, I tried to pick him up.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Okay. Speaking of big time performances, just when we're ready to shovel on the final load of dirt onto the Mark Andrews fantasy worthy grave, he comes out last night, second most targets on the team in 6. Rashad Bateman got 7. Andrews got 6 targets. He catches all of them for 91 yards, and he scores twice. So was the resurgence for real? Or was this something that, we look at with what Wan'Dale Robinson did in week 2, right? Where we understand, he's capable of this, but counting on this to happen again this season, especially with Isaiah Likely coming back any week now too. I wonder if this Andrews thing, that this could have been his best game all season.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like I was in an episode of Groundhog Day, right? Watching this, right? Because this feels very familiar to last year and what happened. I think the difference here between Andrews and Wan'Dale is Andrews is a proven stud, right? Like he's done it for multiple years. He's, a former All-Pro, and it very well may end up being his best game of the year. But I definitely think this shows he's still heavily involved in that offense, and that offense just has a lot of pieces. 1 week it was Zay Flowers. This week it was Mark Andrews. Maybe then, Derrick Henry week. It rotates around. But what I think Andrews is he's going to remain kind of that red zone threat. And that's what he was last year, right? I think he scored a touchdown in 9 straight games to end the year. So I would feel comfortable still playing him at my tight end spot if he was the guy I drafted. And of course, I definitely had him on my bench pretty much on all the teams I do own him on this past week. So I didn't get those points, but I would feel comfortable putting him back in going forward.
I want to ask you this about the Ravens team in general. I know it was the Bills, but they gave up 41 points in week 1. Last night, if you look at Lamar Jackson's stat line, 21 to 27, 288 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He gets another 35 yards on the ground. You would think, the Ravens won this game easily. No, they lost, and they gave up 38 to Detroit. What are the chances that this Ravens defense isn't very good and they're actually in more shootouts that would allow for, these spike performances from guys like Andrews, Bateman, Likely, Flowers, players like that? Or do you think this is just a case of those are 2 of the best offenses in the NFL. They're going to do numbers at some point. They did play the Browns week 2, and they only gave up 17 in that. But I'm just wondering if there's anything here with the Ravens defense, or am I just looking too hard at it?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer to that yet. It's still, obviously it is two of the best offenses, right? I think that has something to do with it. I do think the defense is better than we saw there. There's too many good players on that defense for them to get lit up like that kind of going forward. And then once the Ravens get in some of these games where they get out in front, then the defense is going to get pressure, create turnovers. And, but I do hope I hope it's bad, because I love the shootouts. That's for sure.
Yes. Moving to not that far away, geographically speaking, from Baltimore to DC. This past week in that Raiders-Commanders game, the Commanders had a backfield that did not have Austin Eckler. It did not have Brian Robinson. It had McNichols, Rodriguez, and Krosky Merritt. Krosky Merritt ends up with 9 total touches for 31 yards. He gets a touchdown. McNichols only touches the ball 4 times. He gets 78 yards. Granted, 60 of that was on one run. And then he also scores a touchdown. Chris Rodriguez gets the most touches. He does the least amount with them. 11 carries, 39 yards, and nothing in the passing game as well. I'll phrase it this way. Commanders running backs, roster all of them, but at this point, you can't start any of them. Agree or disagree?
I think I agree with that. Unfortunately, there's going to have to be, some roster builds where you have to start some of them. I know, JCM, I have to throw out there a few times. I kind of got lucky last week on a few teams. I think on my big payback team, I had to start McNichols. I think I was playing Steve G actually on that team, and I'm sure he was pretty pissed off that he had 4 touches and put up 13.5 points. But it's like sometimes you got to get lucky. But I agree with that overall. I think you have to let it play out for a couple weeks, and someone I think will emerge from the group that you can depend on down the road.
And injuries obviously factor into that too. Yeah. I mean, you never root for them, but they are part of the game. And at some point, somebody's going to be benefiting. I mean, they've already benefited from the Eckler injury, and we'll see what happens with the Commanders going forward. Especially when Jaden Daniels gets back and that offense really gets cranked up. I mean, granted, I guess they didn't have Daniels in this last game, and they still scored 41 points. So there's something there. And if you deploy it the right way, it can certainly be beneficial for you if you do it in the right window. The news we got this week was not great for Mike Evans. It sounds like he's going to miss multiple weeks. I think Rappaport pointed out that he missed 4 weeks last year with a hamstring strain. And this hamstring strain, according to MRI, was not as bad as last year's. So you would think, okay, well, maybe only 3 weeks, but Evans is another year older. You just never know how these things are going to go. What's interesting about Tampa is we might see the debut of Chris Godwin, who seemingly was somewhat close, I think, in week 2, even closer in week 3, and maybe we see him this week against Philly. If he is active, and knowing how serious his ankle injury was, and maybe in a perfect world, you'd like to sit him for 1 week just to see how he is. But if Evans is out, and we know Egbuka is dealing with 2 separate injuries right now, Chris Godwin, I don't have him on a bunch of teams. I have him on a few. But in those leagues where you got to start 3 receivers, Mike, I just feel like Godwin might be a risk worth taking in week 4.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, most of the teams that I have Godwin on, he was actually drafted as like my wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5. But at this point, even with that, there's some guys underperforming or injuries. If he's playing and Evans is out, to your point, I'm putting him in, right? Like, I'm not waiting. If they're going to activate him and play him, I think he's healthy enough. And, he's been a target monster in the past. I'll take my chances.
The other point to that, I'll just say, is Baker Mayfield was putting up top 5 quarterback numbers last year with guys like Sterling Shepard when he didn't have it, when Evans and Godwin were both hurt as well. So you give him a weapon like Godwin and you're able to play off Egbuka on the other side. I think that there's something there, and we'll see if he's active. I mean, I might be speaking out of turn. Maybe he doesn't get activated this week, and they still continue to bring him along slowly, but certainly something to be paying attention to if he is indeed active. That game, by the way, between the Eagles and the Buccaneers, that is a 1:00 kickoff, so we'll know, which is always good. The rookie running backs have been the story pretty much all of drafting season. Mike, we had Ashton Genty and Amarian Hampton go in the first round. Everybody was really excited about Quinshawn Judkins, Travion Henderson. Obviously, RJ Harvey got traded up for with the Broncos, and they snagged him in the second round. And then you get guys like on day 3, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bayshell Tootin, Cam Scadaboo, like all these guys. I think most of them have flashed. Scadaboo definitely, Tootin definitely, Krosky-Merritt obviously. Hampton kind of blew up this past week when Harris went down at the 6 scrabs. Obviously, you're looking for more of that going forward. The two guys I want to focus on here, Ashton Genty, who I don't believe everything is his fault, which is going on in Las Vegas, that he just can't get on track. But we as fantasy players, we don't care whose fault it is. We just want the production. So we have to deal with that. And then Travion Henderson, too, a player that I think is clearly the most exciting playmaker in that backfield. But we know Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels' treatment of rookie players in the past. We know that Henderson came into the NFL being a really strong pass pro guy, to the point where I can't remember the Colts GM, Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard was just going out of his way to bring up Travion Henderson in his talking about the Colts draft, and he just brings up Henderson out of nowhere, like, oh, that guy can pass block. And it's like, you didn't draft him. What are you talking about him for? But that's how strong his pass protection was. And then he gets blown up on 3 separate plays in week 2. He gets the holding penalties, 3 holding penalties as well, and then he's banished with Ramondre Stevenson and even Antonio Gibson making plays. Both those guys fumbled the last game, so maybe this could be a Henderson week. I don't know. And then Genty too. I mean, he's having his problems. We have historically seen rookies in general not always hit right away, but maybe mid-season, end of season, that's really when they're hitting their stride, finding their stride. The game slows down for them, and they become, these players that we were hoping for when we drafted them. How much more patience do you think we're going to exercise in regards to Genty, in regards to Travion Henderson, and some of these other slow-starting rookie running backs?
Yeah, I mean, Henderson's time could be coming, because after the fumbles this past week, I think he was on the field like over 80% of the snaps after that.
Yep.
So I think this week is a big week for him. I think I'm gonna roll with him this week where I have him, in the hopes that they give him a lion's share of the touches. Genty's another story. I mean, he was a first round pick for most teams, right? I mean, you're expecting him to be on the field, every snap, basically. That's not happening. He's actually going down. However, if you look at the schedule, their next 3 games are beatable defenses. I mean, he's got the Bears this week. I mean, if he can't do it the next 3 games, then I'm very, very concerned, because it gets tough after their bye. There's some of their matchups. So, I'm going to ride him out the next week or 2. But if he struggles again this week, yeah, I'd be very worried about Genty if he doesn't do it this week.
There was one league that I'm in, just a private dynasty, where I do have a good collection of running backs, and I did bench Genty this week, and I didn't feel all that. Normally you feel weird about something like that, but I didn't feel bad about it at all. Genty, as you mentioned, Bears this week. He goes to Indianapolis the week after that. Then he gets Tennessee. Then he goes to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. Right. You get the Jaguars, the Broncos, who've looked beatable. The Cowboys defense obviously looks very beatable right now. Cleveland gets tough. Here's where you get tough: Cleveland, Chargers, Broncos, Eagles, Texans.
Right.
And then it's that's hopefully at that point he is really finding his way and churning out at least something that we can start as a top 20 running back at that point. And I would say Henderson, it gets easier for him this week facing the Carolina Panthers defense at home. But the Panthers are coming off a 30-0 shot.
I know that was just bogus, though. That shouldn't have happened.
So you're not putting a whole lot of stock in this Panthers D at all.
No, the Falcons were terrible. They missed 2 kicks, and I think that just deflated them. When the second kick was missed, that just totally deflated the offense. Penix was terrible. I don't. The Panthers' run defense is one of the worst I've ever seen. So I would expect the Patriots to run down their throats.
level of concern with some of the Falcons players then that they couldn't get anything going against Carolina with Robinson?
Yeah, it's definitely concerning. I want to see what happens this week, right? Like, how do they bounce back from that? Like, was it a blip in the screen, or or is it really, really concerning, right? So I want to, as a Drake London and Kyle Pitts owner on several teams, I'm kind of hoping they bounce back. And that was just kind of a one-time thing, but we'll see. At least they do have, not that he's great, but if Penix is terrible, at least they do have Kirk Cousins there that potentially could come in.
Falcons are 1.5-point home underdogs to the Commanders this week. Total on that game, 44.5. Maybe we'll see some fireworks. If Jaden Daniels comes back, maybe we get a little shootout and we'll feel the warm fuzzies about London, Pitts, Robinson, even Mooney to a certain extent, going forward with if that's like a 31-30 game or something like that. Dalton Kincaid, this is another guy too, and it's similar to the Mark Andrews, man. With everything I read from people, a lot of stuff I listened to over the last couple of weeks, this is another guy that people were like, look, even in tight end premium leagues like the FFPC, I can't trust this guy. I don't want to flex him out. I never know what's going to happen. And then on Thursday night, 5 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. He leads the team in targets. And I think that's worth bringing up here too, Mike, because he plays on a team without a true number 1 wide receiver, right? They have Elijah Moore, they have Josh Palmer, they have Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, like all these guys, none of them is like the true, number 1. Maybe Kincaid could be that guy. This was a player that a lot of people traded up for to get when he was a rookie in those dynasty rookie drafts to, maybe get him on your roster for 8, 9, 10 years. And you'll be getting top 10 tight end production, maybe top 5 tight end production when he was really, at the peak of his powers. That hasn't materialized. I've heard differing reasons that he was banged up, that the Bills weren't using him correctly. I don't know if this is a harbinger of things to come with Kincaid having this 5 for 66 and 1 touchdown game. It was against Miami, so I don't know what the litmus test is there as far as the resistance that the Dolphins defense is giving up. But what are you doing with Kincaid right now, as far as what you think is going to happen? And then when you consider not only the level of talent that the Bills have and the level of production that their offense has, they get the New Orleans Saints at home at Orchard Park this week. 16.5-point favorites are the Bills in this game. What do you do with Kincaid in week 4, man?
Yeah, no, it's funny because, just talking about Genty, I have a 15-year-old and he just really started getting into fantasy, and he drafted a few of his own teams this year. And he's been texting me all day today, not knowing about what we were going to talk about,
right,
and asking me if he should bench Ashton Genty and flex in Dalton Kincaid for him. I just started laughing. But listen.
Yeah. Well, we never – this is what's so crazy about fantasy football. 4 weeks ago, that was a ludicrous – like you would never think that that'd be a part of a conversation. And now it's actually a serious thing that we need to bring up. Like, whether it's a 15-year-old kid playing, whether it's high-stakes players, like this is a legit question.
Right. Listen, I was last year, I was all in on Kincaid. I wanted to believe everything that he was the next up-and-coming star tight end. It didn't work out. He got hurt. But at the end of the day, Buffalo still plays Dawson Knox like way too much. And they even have another tight end who scored a touchdown, I believe, this past week as well. So even though Kincaid had a great game, to me, and it should have been a bigger game, by the way. Like he should have had a second touchdown, probably closer to 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that was a matchup play. Like the Dolphins were terrible, covering the tight end and over the middle and those type of things. I just don't think – I think Kincaid is what he is. I think he's going to give you some of these games, but he's a tight end 2, borderline tight end 1. And honestly, for this week, New Orleans has been decent against the tight end. They held McBride to 6 for 60. I don't know. I'm not changing my opinions on Kincaid based on last week. That's kind of the way I look at it. He's still the guy I thought he was. If he does this again and his snap share goes up, then maybe else. If he's still in the 50-60% snap shares, that doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, you're playing with fire, right? If you want to start a guy like that, and he's only on the field half the time. And the other thing too to keep in mind, and maybe again, this could be me reading too much into this, but I see a 16.5 point spread, and I just think it's going to be the James Cook and Ray Davis show. And we won't see, we'll see another quiet night from Josh Allen. You look at that game on Thursday night, Allen, I guess he did throw for the 3 touchdowns. He barely got over 200 yards passing, failed to get 30 yards rushing, and Cook was over 100 yards rushing himself. Right. He had 3 catches as well. So I don't know. With Kincaid, it's one of those things, hopefully your team is good enough where you can afford to sit him on the bench one more week just to see if he does it again. But if you can't, you throw him in there. Certainly there's worse things that you can do with your lineup.
Absolutely.
I want to do a few quick hitters with you here on week 4, Mike, and I'll bring up the Thursday night game, Seahawks-Cardinals. There was a walkthrough practice today for Seattle, but Charbonnet was listed as an estimated full participant. Yeah. The Cardinals defense, I think, has been all right this year. Haven't been spectacular, haven't been terrible. If Charbonnet is active and knowing that, this should have been a huge Kenneth Walker game without Charbonnet on Sunday. And to some respect, I guess it was a big Walker game. He gets into the end zone 2 different times, but he only had 16 carries for 38 yards, 1 catch for 12 yards. I feel like Charbonnet is going to gum up the works here, and this is a problem that this is a Thursday night game. Yep. You kind of don't really know, where you're sitting on Sunday. You have to make these decisions on Thursday. If Charbonnet is active, are Walker and Charbonnet both startable on the right team in the right situation? I feel like you probably have to play at least one of them. And I'm not saying that you would have them on both on the same team, but Charbonnet, I always root for one of these guys not to be playing. It's like, hey, let's just take it easy. Let's give this guy a week off this week so we can trust one of these Seattle running backs. And I don't know if we're going to get that trust this week, man, against Arizona.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I definitely didn't like seeing that on Charbonnet. I wish he would they would just sit him out, right? And let him another week. Easy, right? If you have Walker, you're putting him in. I definitely have my fair share of Walker. And last week's numbers didn't look great. I was hoping for a lot more out of him. But if Charbonnet plays, it comes down to your roster construction and what you have and your ability to kind of make some decisions, right? I think, Charbonnet, I'm definitely not playing unless I have to, right? And there definitely are some situations where I may have to, but Walker's the one where you have to really think about it a little bit, right? And again, a lot of teams who have him probably don't have the choice, and they're probably going to have to put him in there. I have a bunch of teams where I can sit him. I have other guys on my bench that I could put in, but I'll just have to make that call if I want to do that or not. Bench him for a Chris Olave or someone like that, right? That you can move up. But that's the tough call. At least it is Thursday from that standpoint, where I can kind of think that through on the Walker, piece if Charbonnet is playing.
Nate Taylor, who covers the Chiefs for ESPN.com, reported today that Kansas City's optimistic that Xavier Worthy is going to be able to play, quote, a limited role for the offense while wearing a, quote, small harness in week 4. I don't like any of this. I also don't like that he's trying to play through this when the Chiefs have Hollywood Brown and they have Tyquan Thornton as well. Thornton, who goes for 5 for 71 and a touchdown on Sunday night. And certainly he is available in some FFPC leagues, obviously taken in some of them as well. But if Worthy is out there, does that make you think okay, Hollywood Brown is not playable, Tyquan Thornton is not playable this week? Or do you think, are you of the belief that he's just going to be a decoy? He really will have a limited role, and it's going to be big time stuff from Hollywood Brown. Tyquan Thornton is going to see a lot of targets as well. The Chiefs this week are playing, I think it was a big one. Yeah, Baltimore.
Yeah.
1-2 Ravens visit Arrowhead to take on the 1-2 Chiefs. Can't believe I'm saying that. Yeah. 48.5 is the total on this. The jigsaw puzzle that is the Chiefs receivers, now that we throw in this extra piece with Xavier Worthy, what do you do there if Worthy is active? And this is a 4:25 start, so we won't really get official word until after the 1:00 games have already kicked off about Worthy.
Yeah. I'm not playing any of them. To be honest, I mean Worthy. I own Worthy. Right? He's on my fourth place team in the overall for the main. I have Worthy, but I'm not putting him in my lineup until he strings a couple games together, and I'm confident that he's not going to re-injure himself, because that's for someone like him, like that's a dangerous injury to kind of play on, and then all he has to do is dive for one ball and he'll get re-injured. Right.
Yeah.
So like I'm definitely not playing him. The other guys, I mean, they're just guys. I mean, I know a lot of people are big Hollywood Brown fans, but they don't do anything for me. I just, I'm not. Kansas City is not very good right now. Yeah. Like I don't. Their offense is not good at all. So unless they change something, Mahomes, you're banking on Mahomes like pulling some miracles out where he can, throw 2 touchdowns and rush for 30 or 40 yards, so he gets his points. But I just don't trust the guys there. It's just too. If you can't score against the Giants, I mean, I don't know, what you're gonna do. I mean, I think honestly, I think Baltimore is gonna crush them, but I could be wrong. I mean, Kansas City, needs to win too, but I think Baltimore's really pissed off. I think they're gonna go in there and crush them.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild that one of those teams is going to be, well, I mean, unless there's a tie, but one of those teams is probably going to be 1-3 after week 4, which is really wild to think about. Terry McLaurin was also in the news today. Mike, we found out that he is dealing with an injured quad, and apparently he's getting additional opinions. You get additional opinions on your injury if you don't like the initial diagnosis. So clearly this is not looking good for McLaurin. It's weird because Jaden Daniels might be back this week, and if he is, he will be able to throw to Deebo Samuel. He'll also be leaning on Zach Ertz. But what about Luke McCaffrey, who went for 3 for 56 last week? He also scores a touchdown, which I believe was kind of in garbage time. But he was targeted on 30% of his routes. He's out there in a boatload of leagues as well. If McLaurin misses, I mean, obviously you're playing Deebo Samuel then. But what about Luke McCaffrey this week if McLaurin's out?
Yeah, he's interesting. Jalen Lane is another guy who's interesting. I think they're both. They both have the thing is Daniel's going to play for one, right? Or is it going to be Mariota again? They're definitely interesting. I just don't know. I mean, they might be worth throwing I'm sure they're both available in almost every league. Throwing a couple dollars out there just to see if either of them hit. And kind of can carve out a full-time role. I just don't know if, like, at this point, if I would start them. I could see taking a peek and like trying to see about picking them up and just holding on to them and see if anything happens. If they do something, like if McCaffrey were to have another good game, then possibly you would look at it. But I don't know. I don't know if there's any long-term value there.
This is the time to, like we mentioned this at the top of the show, this is the time to be playing with those extra roster spots, and grab McCaffrey. And if he hits, great. And then you have a good problem to have with cutting a player you don't want to cut when bye weeks come around. But at least you have that decision. So to get him on your roster, and I'm not saying you play him this week, and obviously it's Tuesday, a lot of stuff can happen. Maybe McLaurin recovers and he's good to go. And this McCaffrey thing in week 4 is a non-starter, but at least you have the option if you pick him up on Wednesday waivers. I want to get back to your Giants here. I touched on it before. Tyrone Tracy out 2 to 4 weeks. And what's wild is Scadaboo was really coming on in week 2, and then Tyrone Tracy still got the start against the Chiefs on Sunday night. You tell me, man, you're the Giants guy. Scadaboo right now, the fact that Tracy's going to be out, I mean, Singletary's still there. We got to find a way to get this guy in the lineup this week, right? Scadaboo against the Chargers. It's not the greatest matchup, but the volume should be there.
Yeah, I agree. For sure. Like, definitely, like, Scadaboo's getting in the lineup unless he's blocked by, like, 3 other amazing running backs, like, on your team. The only thing that has me have a little pause is Dayball loves Devin Singletary. He loves him. So he's still going to play. I bet you the snap is it's like 60-40. Singletary is going to play way too much for the people who want to see Scadaboo out there. You saw it at the end. You saw it in the fourth quarter of the game against the Chiefs. They were Giants had the ball like driving at the end, and Singletary was in the game. Like, I guess they think he's a better pass blocker than Scadaboo, but like that's the only thing I could think of. But that's the only thing that scares me off a little bit. But I agree. I mean, Scottaboo, you could just see it. Like, he has the juice. Like, he's going to be good. I think he's going to be good.
Minnesota has John Hansen said this on the Fantasy Points podcast earlier this week. He said that there might be a quarterback controversy in Minnesota with the Vikings now, with McCarthy hurt, Wentz playing well. And I didn't know if he was kidding or not. I don't think he was. And Hansen's a big Vikings fan. So I take this stuff pretty seriously. Kevin O'Connell said that until McCarthy is fully healthy, he's not going to be started. The Vikings are playing back-to-back games across the pond. I don't know if McCarthy's even going to make the trip out there. And the Vikings have a good team. We've known that Brian Flores has been able to, no matter the types of players that he has on his defense, he's always been able to cobble together a really good unit that performs well. You think about the playmakers that are on this team. Addison gets back this week to join Justin Jefferson. Hawkinson, Jordan Mason looked awesome as well. They're going to get Aaron Jones back here in a couple of weeks. This is a team that, until proven otherwise, has Super Bowl aspirations, and they should. And if that's the case, we saw what McCarthy did on Sunday night in week 2. Dude, if Wentz is in there, is this a player that, I mean, Superflex leagues, obviously you're picking him up, but in single quarterback leagues, how aggressive do you think we should be on Carson Wentz after what Kevin O'Connell said today?
Yeah, I'm not going after him. I mean, it's not like he did anything special this past week, right? It was the defense. The defense like destroyed that game and made it very easy for him. So, if he goes out and listen, Carson Wentz is on his 6th team in 6 years. Right. I mean, this is going to be like Jameis Winston from last year. He's going to go out there and have like 2 good games, and everyone's going to be loving him. And then the real Carson Wentz is going to show up. So, I mean, I just glanced at their schedule, right? Like going into the bye. Yeah, they're playing Pittsburgh and Cleveland, right? Let's see how he does there. And I can see why he's saying that about McCarthy, because after the bye, they have Philly, the Chargers, Detroit, Baltimore. I mean, that's a gauntlet to come back with. So, I can see why John Hansen is saying that, because that, if these next 2 games Wentz looks good, I could see them sticking with him through that gauntlet.
14-20, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns. And it was, you mentioned it was Minnesota's defense that was a story. It's also against Cincinnati's defense, which is terrible. So I think, this is a perfect storm that really made Carson Wentz look really, really good. And maybe he's something, maybe he's nothing. But certainly I want to until I get healthier at the quarterback position. Hopefully Brock Purdy's back this week, but man, I've been grasping at straws. One of the guys I was lucky enough to pick up in some of those Purdy leagues was Daniel Jones. Have we seen the real Daniel Jones this year? Is the clock going to strike midnight on him, because he looks awesome so far? Yeah,
I mean, listen, I mean, he had the one, like, I would say there were times with the Giants that he looked like this. Like, I defended the Giants signing him over Saquon when they did it, because he looked good that prior year. And then I don't know what happened to, like, obviously the line was bad. He got injured. There was a lot going on, but he has talent. It's just a matter of if with a good offensive line, I think he's not like a top 5 quarterback, but I think he's a competent quarterback who could win games. And he's showing that right now.
And I mean, he did it against Denver too in week 2. Like, I thought that was a great litmus test, and he passed that with flying colors. Had another great game against Tennessee, and we'll see what happens going forward. But certainly, he's a player I want on my roster. They get the Rams this week. This is on the road, and you'd think like, oh, that's a bad matchup. This is where things start to go south. Well, total on that game's 49.5, and they are 3.5-point dogs. So maybe we'll see some stuff, some magic, some fireworks in the 4th quarter for Daniel Jones in that game too. Very excited to watch that Colts-Rams game in the 4:00 window on Sunday. Mike Edelman, one final question for you here before we let you enjoy your Tuesday evening. Can you give us a player that you are targeting on the waiver wire? You said you're not going after Wentz, but is there a player that you are? And conversely, is there a player that maybe you have on your teams that you're like, you know what, I've had 3 weeks of a sample size. I need to move on because I got to get this other player on my team. Is there a player that you're ready to move on from at this point?
Yeah. So this week, it's a really a slow week in terms of overall fab, I think. You know, I think Trey Tucker is someone who I'm going to throw out some keep me honest bids on him. It's not someone that I'm going to go crazy to get, but, you know, at this point, I think he's shown flashes where, you know, I'm going to make sure people pay that want to get him, right? I think he's worth taking a look at. So he's someone that I'll probably take a look at this week. In terms of, like, you know, I mentioned Roshan Johnson as someone who's probably my highest owned guy who I'm probably going to start cutting on some of my teams this week. But in terms of like someone who I'm really fed up with, I'm not cutting him, but he's like, I'd say a top 4 or 5 round player that he's riding my bench until further notice is Calvin Ridley. Like I'm pretty much done with him at this point. I mean, he's done nothing. Thankfully, on most of my teams, I have guys I could put in for him. But I mean, he's just done nothing. I'm just mad at myself that I got sucked back into him again this year.
He gets obviously the rookie quarterback, first overall pick in Cam Ward, who thankfully, unless you're a Pollard owner, does not really check the ball down a whole lot. He likes to push the ball down the field. Ridley saw 7 targets in the game against the Colts on Sunday. That was tops on the team. He only caught 1 of them.
No.
1 catch for 27 yards. They're still not on the same page. Meanwhile, Chiga Conquo catches 5 balls out of his 6 targets. And Alec Iamaner, who was picked up in a lot of leagues last week, drafted in a bunch of leagues as well. He had 4 catches for 38 yards, but he did get in the end zone again. So certainly they're making it work on Tennessee's offense is making it work and doesn't necessarily have to be with Calvin Ridley. They can do it without him, and they've been showing that so far. Getting back to the Trey Tucker thing, you think he goes for like 350 on the waiver wire? What's your best guess of what if you really want to make sure you get Tucker, what should people be bidding on him?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not going that high. You know, that's probably, I'm trying to like average out like the difference like on FFPC. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he'll go that high on FFPC, right? But I think mid to high 200s probably it should get him in a lot of places. I mean, I'm definitely not even going to come near that. I'm just going to throw out probably some maybe low 100 bids. If I get them, I get them. If I don't, so be it. Let someone overpay. But yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, while he did put up 40, I mean, he's still 3rd or 4th on his team. He should be 3rd or 4th on his team in targets. So, you know, you're just hoping for that one big play every game from him.
The case I'll make for Tucker here is the number 1 target for the Raiders is clearly playing hurt in Brock Bowers. He does not look right out there. He gets 4 catches for 38 yards. There was a lot of people that were excited about Dante Thornton, the rookie, during drafting.
Included. Yep.
And he was a guy. Well, and part of the excitement was you could get him so cheap, you could get him so late, and he made perfect sense. A really big, tall guy with a huge catch radius that can fly. Yeah, sign me up. But he hasn't looked like he's going to be a difference maker, at least yet. Jack Besh, the 2nd round pick, I always thought that was a clunky fit anyway with Jacoby Myers there, and I think that they're not complementary players at all. There's a lot of duplication of skills there. He gets 1 target and catches a ball for 10 yards this past week. And then you have Genti in the ground game struggling. The one, and again, I know it was one week, but Trey Tucker was the one bright shining star on the Raiders this past week. And he has gotten, if you include week 3, he's gotten 17 targets over the course of the last 2 weeks. So he's involved. Maybe he's something, maybe he's nothing. And to your point, maybe it should be keep it honest bids on Tucker. Yeah. When Bowers gets healthy and Genti figures it out, is Trey Tucker really going to be the guy that you want to be starting in your lineups down the stretch? Probably not. But I am of the opinion that if you can get him low 100s, mid 100s, something like that, he could help you out over these next few weeks.
I agree with that. I mean, the next couple games, there's some good matchups out there. The buys are going to start. He could be the type of player that you throw in there, like to help fill your bye weeks, especially on some of the easier matchups.
Mike Edelman, such a treat to talk shop with you. This was a lot of fun. You've helped me with how I'm going to layer out some of my bids this week in my Kentucky leagues and my private dynasties as well. Congratulations on a baller start to the 2025 season. Top 10 in NFFC. You're looking at 4th place overall in the FFPC main event for $1 million grand prize as well. And you got a lot of pokers in the fire too of these other teams that look very dangerous that could make a play for that 7-figure grand prize at the end of the season. Until we talk again, we will connect with you on X at Edelman24. Good luck in week 4. Good luck the rest of the way, Mike. Thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight.
All right. Thanks for having me, Bulky. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. You got it, Mike. See you next time. That is Mike Edelman, the 17-time FFPC league champion and 4th place in the FFPC main event right now as we head into week 4 of the season. So good to have him on. So good to have you listening, streaming, downloading, what have you. So glad that you hung out with us tonight or are downloading it later. Want to remind you that the FFPC Weekly Challenge is live. There's no draft. There's no salary cap. Just pick 10 or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses and win up to $2,500. 10 and 30 and 100 team contests. You can only pick one player per team. So if you want Trey Tucker, you can't have Ashton Genty. If you want, is another good example, Trevor Lawrence, you can't have Travis Etienne. myffpc.com, myffpc.com is where to go for that. That is the same exact format as the FFPC World Famous Playoff Challenge as well. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be Thursday night, 7 to 9 p.m. It is the best pregame show in the business, fantasy football night in America. For FFPC Insider Access, myself and Establish the Runs, Jack Miller, for 2 full hours. That's going to be a blast. And then Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern, Farrell Elliott and myself will get together and get your lineup set for week 4. Don't forget, we do have an Ireland game this week. So 9:30 a.m. kickoff on the East Coast. Between the Vikings and Steelers. That's a 6:30 kickoff for those of you on the West Coast. Make sure you're getting your lineups in early on that. Of course, you get waiver wire stuff tomorrow to help your rosters out as well. We'll be back next Tuesday night on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Ted Rokas, who is also swimming in the top 20 of the FFPC main event right now, heading into week 4. He will join me on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown next week. For Mike Edelman, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. We will talk with you again next week.
Thank you for listening to the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. And thanks to Grapes for our theme music. Please review the podcast on Apple Podcasts under the RotoViz radio feed. It helps us find new listeners. Contact us via email at rotovizradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think and connect with us on X at RotoVizRadio. Remember, you can always support the show by subscribing to RotoViz at a 10% discount using the code RVRadio2025. That's RVRADIO2025 through the NFL Podcast homepage at rotoviz.com/podcast.